In this video, we'll be taking a look at Webflow and Framer to see which is the better choice for your next website project. To start off, I'll share a bit of background on Webflow and Framer so you can know what makes both of them unique and where they came from, and then we'll compare them both across 4 different categories, starting off with ease of use, then moving into technical ability, we'll compare the CMS, and then finally pricing and hosting. After that, I'll share my final thoughts and let you know which tool I think you should be using for your next website project. So first up, we've got Webflow, which was founded in 2012 and has grown steadily since then. Second, we've got Framer, which originally was founded in 2015, but was a prototyping tool, and then recently, back in 2022, launched their actual site builder tool, which is the competitor to Webflow that we know today. So the first category I want to compare on is ease of use, and really what I was going for with this category is which of these platforms can you just open up without having any background information and just build a website and get started. And the clear winner here is definitely Framer. Framer's UI is very simple. It's much less overwhelming, and Framer abstracts away some of the code knowledge that Webflow forces you to use, such as classes and div blocks. And so I would definitely give Framer the win here. I think both of their UIs are good in different ways. If you're more used to development or you have some code background, Webflow is going to feel very intuitive to you, and it's going to feel like a faster way to write HTML and CSS. Whereas Framer, if you're used to Figma and you're a designer, it's going to feel very native to you and very easy to just get started. And a lot of the concepts for building things or creating animations are the same. So it's going to be a lot easier for designers to use. So I would give Framer the leg up here. It's a bit easier to use for beginners and things like that, but I think Webflow still has a great UI. It's just a little bit harder to use and more overwhelming once you first open it up. Next up, we've got technical ability, and in this category, what I'm looking at is which of these tools feels like you can build anything and not be constrained by the tool. And for me, in this category, the clear winner is definitely Webflow. I think a big reason for this is that Webflow has just been around for so much longer than Framer has. With Framer, it's really been only 2 years that they've been around, and they just haven't had as much time to refine and build out the product. So for me, when I was using Framer, there were a lot of just simple things that I could do with Webflow that I wasn't able to do with Framer. I'll probably list out a couple of these items on the screen here so you can see just kind of some of the limitations with Framer. But overall, Webflow is just a lot more robust and built out to be able to do more things with code. You can always add on additional code libraries or things to your project to be able to create different animations or integrations with other things, and you just have more of that freedom with Webflow than I feel like you do with Framer. So I'm going to give the win here to Webflow. Next, we're going to be looking at the CMS of both Webflow and Framer, and I think this is one of the most important categories because if you're building a website today, you want to have a strong CMS backing your site so that you can scale it easily and create and manage content easily as well. Webflow and Framer both have a similar layout to their CMS and how it's set up. You have collections and then you have collection templates. So you'd create a collection for blog posts and you would populate that with all your blog posts, and then you would design out your template to look however you want it to. So they're both pretty similar in that way, but Webflow CMS is a lot more robust with different features. There's just certain field types that you can't add in Framer CMS, one of those being like a reference field, which limits you quite a bit when you're creating things like filters or categories or things like that. It's just a lot harder to do that in Framer than it is in Webflow. And there's also no support in Framer for embedded code blocks. You can display code in your posts in Framer, but you can't embed code to embed like a podcast player or something like that. So I definitely give the win here to Webflow. It's just a lot more robust and built out. And last up, we've got pricing and hosting, which we'll look at between Webflow and Framer, and they both offer a pretty similar pricing model. You pay for hosting for individual sites, and then you pay for seats on your actual team plan to use Webflow or Framer. They both offer a free team plan, so you could use it for free and just pay for hosting. But if you're really trying to get a team of people in there, you're going to want to pay for that workspace so you can have multiple content editors in there. So it's really similar across the board. The plans are pretty similar in pricing, maybe a couple dollars different on the different levels. But I would say overall, this is pretty much a tie between these two. You're going to be paying around the same amount of money with whichever platform you choose. The one area that I think Framer is better in, I really like their add-on feature where you can pay additional money to have more bandwidth or some extra features. Whereas with Webflow, it seems like once you've capped out that business hosting plan, you have to go straight to their enterprise plan, which gets a lot more expensive. So I really like what Framer's done with that. But I think across the board, you're really looking at the same thing with these. One of the other things I will put in there for Webflow is Webflow does give you the option to export your code and self-host. It's not the most seamless experience, but it does give people the option there. If they don't want to pay for Webflow's pricing to host, they could take all that code and then host it on their own somewhere else. So that's a nice feature. But across the board, I think they're really similar here. So let's talk about the final verdict here. Which is better, Webflow or Framer? I would have to say right now, I think Webflow is still the better choice for the vast majority of people. However, I think there are plenty of good use cases for when Framer would be a better tool to use. I think if you are someone who's really experienced with Figma, if you're a designer and you're just looking to build a quick portfolio or something like that, Framer is probably the better tool. It's going to get the job done. But I think for any sites that are going to have more traffic or need to be more robust, Webflow is definitely the tool of choice there. I really see Framer as being a closer competitor or comparison to a tool like Wix or Squarespace, where it enables someone who doesn't need to know anything about code to be able to get a website out there. And I think Webflow, on the other hand, does have a bigger learning curve, but one of the most powerful things about it is that you can build a site without code, but still have it compete with a custom built site. The output is still really clean of the code that you create, and you can do so many things beyond just creating basic sites. You could build apps with it. And so I think for larger companies or bigger teams, bigger sites, I think Webflow is definitely the much better choice. But Framer has a spot there. It's a really great tool for building quick landing pages, and it enables people without that code knowledge to do that. And I think it's done a great job at that. So I would say my choice is still to use Webflow, but I really like what Framer's doing, and I think it can work for certain use cases. That's all I've got for you today. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on Webflow and Framer.